Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont became a household name in 2016 when he ran a progressive campaign for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. But much of that primary race was a one-on-one contest. He is now vying for the Democratic nomination again. But this time, he's up against at least 20 other candidates. And Senator Sanders joins us now. Senator Sanders, welcome back to the NewsHour.
Good to be with you, Judy.
So let's start with our lead story tonight, and that is the stock market dropping over 470 points. Fears, analysts say, of a trade war with China, President Trump's policies toward China. It appears to many people that your approach to trade with China is very similar to the president's.
No, it is not. What I recognize is that for many years, our trade policies have been a disaster. If you look at NAFTA and you look at PNTR with China, in fact, it's cost us about 4 million decent-paying American jobs and helped lead the race to the bottom where wages were depressed in America. So I think we do need new trade policies that are fair to the working people of this country, not just to the CEOs. But as usual, I think Trump gets it wrong in terms of implementation.
But you would be tough on China, as he is.
I would be supportive of American workers. I think it is wrong that when large corporations are making huge profits, that they simply shut down in this country, throw American workers out on the street, then look for cheap labor abroad. So I believe that we have got to deal with that issue, but not the way Trump is dealing with it.
Well, let me turn to something that you spend a lot of time talking about in this campaign, and that is Medicare, health care, and namely a proposal for Medicare for all, guaranteed health care for every person, man, woman, and child in the country. I think everybody agrees the current system needs fixing. More people need to be covered. But right now, this is an economy that is spending, what, $3.5 trillion a year on health care? It is a sixth of the American economy.
Right.
And even you acknowledge that doing something like Medicare for all would be a massive disruption, do away with private, okay, all right.
That wasn't my word, no.
All right, other people are saying it would be a massive disruption. Do away with private insurance. Why not move incrementally rather than moving?
Because you have a dysfunctional system that is really rotten to the core. And let me tell you something, Judy. The people who are opposing Medicare for all in the insurance industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, these are people who are making huge compensation benefits, and they are seeing their corporations make huge profits. 10 largest drug companies made $69 billion in profits last year. Yeah, they don't like the idea that I intend to lower drug prices by 50%. But here is the bottom line. Right now, you got 34 million people, no health insurance, even more underinsured. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. We end up spending twice as much per person on healthcare as do the people of any other country. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. How can anyone defend a dysfunctional system like that?
But when you have, as we said, such a huge part of the U.S. economy, the Congressional Budget Office did a nonpartisan analysis of your plan, essentially, universal coverage. They came away and they concluded many people employed in the healthcare system now would lose their jobs. They concluded that employer-based healthcare coverage that most non-elderly Americans now use would be eliminated. And they say fewer people would likely go into the medical profession because pay would be less.
That's exactly wrong. Right now, because of all of the stress that the insurance companies put on doctors, you're finding many doctors demoralized. Doctors are trained and nurses are trained to work with their patients, to try to do well by their patients. Right now, before they can do any procedure, they got to call up 3 insurance company folks. Here is the bottom line. All right, the bottom line is we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. We spend twice as much, and our health care outcomes are poor. Medicare right now, Judy, is the most popular health insurance program in the country. All that I want to do over a 4-year period is expand Medicare to all of our people. We will save the average American significant sums of money, give him or her freedom of choice regarding doctors and hospitals.
But you say it's freedom of choice, but you're doing away with private insurance.
Yes.
And we remember the reaction. Remember President Obama said you can keep your health care plan, you can keep your doctor. It didn't work out that way.
Because those were junk plans that he ended up doing away with. Right now, do you think the average American has freedom of choice with regard to doctor? If a doctor is not in your network, you can't go to that doctor. All that I want to say to the American people tonight is we are taking on the insurance companies and the drug companies who make huge profits off a dysfunctional system that is not working for the average American. They are going to spend, Judy, in my view, hundreds of millions of dollars trying to preserve their profits and their outrageous compensation packages. The guy who was head of Aetna created a merger with CVS. He got $500 million in bonus. I don't think that's where we should be spending healthcare dollars.
But your plan would call for some form of higher taxes, no question.
Of course. Look, if I'm going to do away with all of your premiums and your co-payments and your deductibles and we're expanding benefits, it has to be paid for. But when you eliminate premiums and deductibles and co-payments and out-of-pocket expenses, the average American will be better off.
Let's talk about the cost of college. One of your signature proposals, tuition-free college. You would impose a
Public colleges and universities, not
Public.
not Harvard. Public
right.
colleges and universities.
You would impose a financial transactions tax,
On
as
Wall
it's
Street.
called, to pay for it. But how much, what would this mean for the, 45 million Americans who have college debt right now? How would they benefit?
Oh, they would benefit very substantially.
Because they've left college and they're in debt.
This $900 billion that we're talking about. Look, here's the story. Right now, Wall Street profits are very, very high. They're charging you 17% interest rates on your credit card, real usury. We bailed them out after their illegal activity nearly destroyed the economy. So what I believe is at a time when hundreds of thousands of bright young kids can't afford to go to college and millions of people are struggling with outrageous levels of student debt, this is an issue we have to deal with. So I am proudly, and I'm glad that more and more people are following my lead. I believe that in the 21st century, when you talk about public education, public colleges and universities should be tuition-free, and we substantially lower student debt. People should not be punished for getting a higher education in a competitive global economy.
And just quickly, the second part of this is right now, states would still have to pick up a good bit of the cost.
Yes.
But many of these are states that have been cutting spending for higher education.
Right.
How do you get them to flip and spend more?
Well, that's another issue. Instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires, you got Amazon and dozens of other corporations not paying a nickel in federal income tax last year. So my view is that large, profitable corporations should start paying their fair share of taxes. We'll work with the states. But the bottom line is, in a competitive global economy, every kid in this country, regardless of his or her income, deserves a higher education if that is their goal.
Very quickly, a question on foreign policy. You've been saying recently you wish you had spoken more about foreign policy 2 years ago when you ran for president. What would you do right now to punish Russia for what they did in 2016?
First of all, unlike Trump, you have to acknowledge the very seriousness of what they did. To try to undermine democracy in America and other countries is simply not acceptable, and they have got to pay a price. So we have a president who doesn't even acknowledge that. But I think we should be looking at very tough sanctions. This is an act of aggression against American democracy. It cannot be accepted.
Beyond what this administration?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and what would that do? I mean, are the Russians going to stop? Are you saying that's going to stop them
Well, I can't give you a blueprint.
hacking? I mean,
But we have a president who doesn't even acknowledge, virtually does not even acknowledge the reality of what they did. Here is a Putin and his friends are trying to undermine American democracy and democracy in Europe. They have got to know that's not acceptable, and the world has got to tell them they're going to pay a very heavy price for it.
A question about polls. Joe Biden, you and he were running roughly 1-2 in the polls, and then he got into the race officially. He has surged into the lead. You've slipped. What's going on?
Well,
is he appealing to the moderates among Democrats? What's going on?
I think you're going to see, here's my prediction. You're going to see polls that are very good for Joe and for Bernie and polls that are not so good. All I can tell you is that we are working really, really hard. I'm very proud that we have over 1 million people who have volunteered to work on our campaign. I think in our campaign, you're going to see an unprecedented grassroots effort, not only to help me win the primary and beat Trump, but really to take on the powerful special interest who controls so much of the economic and political life of our country.
Are you at all concerned he appeals more to the moderates in the Democratic Party?
No, I think at the end of the day, we're going to be fine because I think our message will appeal to working people. We had polls out there that showed us, by the way, winning in Pennsylvania, winning in Michigan, winning in Wisconsin, and I think we're going to appeal to the heartland. I was just in Iowa the other day because our message of standing up for a working class in this country which has been ignored for so long, I think will resonate. And I think people are saying that Trump is a phony. He told the American people he would guarantee health care to everybody, then he wanted to throw 32 million people off of health care. He wouldn't cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. His budget did exactly that. So we are going to expose Trump for the fraud that he is. We have a message that will appeal to working people, black and white and Latino, all over this country.
Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you very much. We look forward to watching you on the trail.
Thank you very much, Judy.
Thank you. And now to another Democratic contender. Our Amna Nawaz has been on a reporting trip to Iowa. Last night, she caught up with former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke, and here's part of what he had to say.
There's a comment you made early in an interview that's kind of stuck with you. It was the idea of being born to be in this, born to do this. People have said it about you too.
Yeah.
And when it came across to a lot of people, you are in a diverse field of candidates, a straight white man. It sounded a little entitled. So I wonder how you look back on that now. What do you explain to people who say that maybe wasn't the right thing to say?
Yeah, well, I hope that you read the entire article, because I didn't say that I was born to be president of the United States. Whoever decides the headlines on the magazines made that choice. What I said is that I feel like I was born to serve people. You know, a small business owner, creating jobs in El Paso, meeting a payroll week in, week out. I'm not entitled to anything. Every vote, every caucus goer will be earned by showing up, showing profound respect, by listening to their concerns, learning from them, but also showing up with the courage of our convictions, talking about what this country needs to do at this pivotal defining moment.
And stay tuned for more of Amna's reporting from Iowa soon. And join us tomorrow for a conversation with another 2020 contender, former Maryland Congressman John Delaney.